Hey guys, no clever, snappy little one-liner from me in this one. I just want to let people know up front that this is not a spoiler review. I won't be going into the plot excessively and talking about plot points, things like that. What I call it is kind of spoiler-ish, in that if you have not read the story, there are certain plot elements, basic plot elements, basic character names, things like that, that I have to talk about to be able to review this book. So I wanted to wait a little while to give more people a chance to read this. But I just want to let you know, if you haven't read it yet, I'd recommend bookmarking this and coming back, because this is a book you're not going to want to miss, and I don't think you'll want to have this plot element spoiled for you. So again, it's going to be a spoiler-free discussion except for that one thing. I hope that makes some sense to you. Let's go ahead and talk about it now. Hey, what's up, bookworms? Welcome to Sci-Fi September. It's not really a thing like we did with Spooky Season, or not what we call last year. They're calling it Spooky Season this year. We called it Fright Fest last year. In that the whole month's not going to be sci-fi stuff. I'm just going to be reading a lot of sci-fi books this year and kind of putting a spotlight on it, because I felt like I really neglected it again this year after I said I wasn't going to do that. But you know what? The Malazan read-along just changed some things. But today, guys, we're going to be talking about Project Hail Mary by Mr. Andy Weir, the follow-up to Artemis, which was the follow-up to The Martian. But you know what? I don't think they thought too highly of Artemis, because in here it says, like, from the author of The Martian. Fake stickers. They're the worst, aren't they? This is a book that was published this past May, but it wasn't even on my TBR at the time. I wouldn't have considered Andy Weir an automatic author, automatic read, or anything for me. I read The Martian last fall. Really, really enjoyed it. So much so that I was going to pick up Artemis, and like everyone warned me, do not read Artemis. You are going to be bummed out. I mean, like almost damn near unanimous. Everybody had problems with Artemis, and it really got me wondering, hey, was this guy a one-hit wonder? You know, it does happen sometimes. And I know he wrote things before The Martian, but that was kind of his big breakthrough. I think it's called like The Egg or something like that. But as far as I know, it wasn't even like released officially. I don't know. I'm not this big Andy Weir scholar or anything like that. But I did kind of start to wonder, maybe it was just a one-hit wonder. It does happen. And you kind of get that fine line here where it's like everybody's saying, hey, why can't you write something more like The Martian? And then when you do write something more like The Martian, like, why can't you write anything different? So I was kind of leery about this one when it came out. The description, I was like, that sounds awfully similar to The Martian, doesn't it? But again, guys, that's why I wanted to give that warning before I started this video, in that I'm going to have to spoil some plot elements for you, because this is not like The Martian. It's quite different. The only thing it has in common with The Martian is that there's some outer space in it. That's about it, you guys. So the overwhelming praise for this book is what made me decide to go ahead and pick it up. I mean, just everyone was saying it's his best book. It's better than The Martian. You've got to read it right now. It's the best book of the year. And I'm like, holy crap. All right. So I went ahead and picked it up while I was at the airport on vacation in Jamaica. So did it meet the hype, guys? Well, we're going to talk about it. But let's begin, as usual, by talking about what is this book about. Now, Ryland Grace is the sole survivor on a desperate last chance mission. And if he fails, humanity and the Earth itself will perish. Except that right now he doesn't know that. He can't even remember his own name, let alone the nature of his assignment or how to complete it. All he knows is that he's been asleep for a very, very long time. And he's just been awakened to find himself millions of miles from home with nothing but 2 corpses for company. His crewmate's dead, his memories fuzzily returning. He realizes that an impossible task now confronts him. Alone on this tiny ship that's been cobbled together by every government and space agency on the planet and hurled into the depths of space, it's up to him to conquer an extinction-level threat to our species, and thanks to a very unexpected ally, he just may have a chance in doing that. Guys, that leads us into Project Hail Mary. Now let's talk about what makes it good or bad. That's why we're here, right? Well, good here. The relationship between Ryland and Rocky. Now, who is Rocky, you might ask? I never expected this to be a First Contact book. The dust jacket does not tell you that this is a First Contact book. You have no idea what this book about is except what I just read to you a minute ago. And it didn't even mention that thing about the unexpected ally when I read it. So it's something that I think I didn't want to kind of bring up if I wasn't doing a spoiler review. But I have to talk about Rocky for this review to make sense, because the relationship between Ryland and Rocky is just amazing. It's superb. It is magnificent the way that it grows, the way they get past their differences and they're unable to understand each other's language and stuff like that. I love things like this where two different cultures have to work together, whether they're interspecies or not. It's just such a neat idea. And I think he just hits a home run with this by building on this relationship between these two characters. The building is just phenomenal because it starts as like, I don't know, you're kind of like standoffish. You're like, I don't know, the way that Weir describes this thing, it sounds kind of scary. I don't know. But, you grow to really, really admire this growing relationship that it goes from like, okay, this is just like a partnership, we're working towards this goal, and then it grows to just being straight companions. And you think about the solitary space, what do you want more than some companionship, So it's a really, really heartfelt book in that regard. It really, really just grows that relationship between those two characters, and you can feel their frustrations. Lots of stuff they say is lost in translation, and a lot of things that Rocky says is just like butchering of the English language. It's hilarious. It's very, very funny to read. But, you also, not just their frustration, but you get to feel their need for one another, just for, just being able to talk to someone else. You think about it. What else? What is more lonely than space? So you can be solitary, lost stranded on an island on Earth, or you could be lost in outer space, billions of miles from home. I can't think of anything more lonely. So I think whereas The Martian kind of struggled on the struggles of solitude, this is really about more the need for companionship. Not getting to that point of solitude. Now, I'm not going to try to compare those two books together. It's going to come up a lot, obviously, because it's a very, very popular book by this author. So a lot of people are always going to kind of make that comparison. So I'm going to try not to do that a lot. But I love that Ryland is kind of an everyman, kind of in that Michael Crichton way. It's never, the action stars. I mean, this guy isn't even an astronaut. Sure, he's smart. He's wrote some papers and things like that, just like a Crichton novel, whereas you have these characters are just scientists. Usually they're very, very smart. This guy's a school teacher. He has a past, obviously, that gets unwrapped slowly in almost like a Lost kind of way, like reverse chronological order. And it's really, really well done, the way that you just keep getting more and more answers. It almost is like that flashback kind of thing, like a Lost episode would do. And I love that storytelling format if it's done right. And I know people are going to be like, but Mike, you hated that with Liza Locke-Lamora because it was done wrong in Liza Locke-Lamora. It's done right here, and I loved it. And I think while the science is very thick, again, in a Michael Crichton kind of way, and guys, this is a good comparison. That's my second favorite author of all time. I think that the dad joke humor really, really mixes well. I think that every time stuff gets a little too sciencey, he'll do something like, so you poked it with a stick? No. Well, yeah, I poked it with a stick. It's just well timed. I feel like all the jokes really land, even more so than in The Martian. I feel like they, it's never like a thing where it's taking you out of it. There's huge stakes. This isn't a Marvel movie. We're not going to make a joke at the most inopportune time because the kids might be getting scared. It's more of this is a tense situation. I could see someone saying something like this in that moment because you would kind of need to relieve the pressure a little bit. It's never a joke where you're like, no one would say that in this situation. It's never has that feeling. And I love this. So I think it works well. The science is quite good, guys. This is extinction level event that takes place in here. It does seem like something, maybe without like the extraterrestrial portion of it, but it does seem like something you could see, something you could see being very realistic. So that makes it a little more frightening, So this book is an extremely quick read, and it is the very essence of the phrase page turner, because you literally are doing one more chapter with this. And I recommend in this one stopping in the middle of chapters. You're never going to go to sleep because each chapter does almost have like a cliffhanger, and it's great. It's well done. It almost feels like episodes of television that would end with a cliffhanger every episode. Well, I got to watch the next episode kind of thing. It's like when you watch 24 on DVD for the first time. It's like, okay, well, I got to see what happens next. It kind of feels like that. But again, guys, with this book, it's the themes of friendship. Everyone coming together, putting our differences aside to work towards a greater goal, to save something. Just uplifting, and it's wonderful. It's wonderfully written, and I anytime you can really nail those themes of friendship as well as he does here, and friendship under incredibly high pressure stakes situations, it's wonderful. It's wonderful, and just trust in one another. putting your trust, blind trust in someone that you don't even know that well is a very common theme in this too. And he lands it's so well. And guys, it's an emotional book. This book will hit you in the feels more than once. It got me twice. And it's just because you really connect as much as Rylan and Rocky connect in this book. If you feel like that invisible third wheel with those two, you will laugh with them, you will cry with them, you will feel their victories and their defeats with them, and that's just good writing, man. I don't know what else to say. The guy, he's a good writer, and even though people told me how bad it is, I still want to go back and read Artemis because I feel like at this point, this guy is an automatic author for me. Now I'm going to read whatever he puts out next. Now there are a couple of bad things. I mean that just a couple. And I don't even really consider them bad. This one's going to kind of depend on you. If you didn't like the humor in The Martian, and yes, there are a lot of people who said they didn't like The Martian because the humor was just ridiculous. If you didn't like that humor, this isn't going to be the book that converts you. I think it's, like I said, it feels like it's more properly timed in this one. Whereas The Martian was always like an after event. It was recording voice, journals after the fact, where you could see yourself being a little humor. This happens in real time, and you can see these things being more, okay, that's something I could see that someone says to kind of, a little levity in a tense situation. I could see that a little more. But again, if you just want your science fiction thriller books to be super serious, stick to Blake Crouch, stick to Michael Crichton. This probably isn't going to be the book that changes your opinion on those kind of things. If you are a modern sci-fi thriller snob, not going to be for you. And let me explain what this is when I reviewed Dark Matter by Blake Crouch and how much I loved it, I was just stunned how many people, hard science fiction guys, that dropped in the comments and thought the book was trash. And apparently they consider Andy Weir and Blake Crouch to be Walmart sci-fi. So I don't know if that's just like hey, you're listening to like the popular music, you have to like the cutting edge stuff that no one really knows about. I don't really know what that is. I didn't know this was a thing until recently. Like I said, I grew up reading Crichton, the techno thriller, and I feel like those two guys are kind of not on that level, obviously, but I feel like they could be, kind of like passing the torch down to those two gentlemen. And I've only read 3 total books by those guys, so if that's a bad comparison, don't get mad at me. As someone who loves Crichton, I see a lot of those similar themes with those two authors, so that's why I'm kind of going there. But if you are wanting like your Alistair Reynolds type stuff or Peter F. Hamilton, this isn't it. Obviously, this isn't going to be that hard of a science, but it does have science in it, but in layman's terms, I think, like I always said about Crichton, he put it in a way that people can understand, and I feel like him and Blake Crouch have both done that, so I consider it a good thing. But if you are expecting more than that, that might be a bad thing for you. Let's get into a little why you should read it. When I think sometimes it's hard to get people who've never read sci-fi before to read sci-fi, this is a perfect entry point. It doesn't matter if you like science fiction or not. This is going to transcend that genre. You are going to be able to read this whether you've read 100 sci-fi books or you've read 0. You're going to be able to enjoy this. I think this is a story that even my mother, who wouldn't touch science fiction with a 100-foot pole, would enjoy because it's just that well written, and he just draws that connection between those characters so well. It's going to be impossible for you not to feel that friendship. And it's just, guys, it's an adrenaline rush of a read. You're just going to fly through the pages. This is not going to take you more than a couple of days to read. Like I said, I was on vacation at the time, so obviously I flew through it a little faster than others. But I don't audio, but I have been told that the audiobook is wonderful. I'm curious to know how they do Rocky's dialogue in the audiobook because it is very different. Let's just put it that way. But it's an audiobook that people have finished in a day because it was that good. So I think that whether you want to audio it or you want to read it, it's not going to take you too long. It's so lighthearted, guys, with very serious themes and content matter. But again, it's just spectacular, the themes that he does nail in here. Now, there are some people who've said there's kind of some preachy stuff in here. I didn't see it at all. I mean, the word climate change was brought up. I don't consider that preachy or whatever. He's never looking at the reader and wagging a finger at them. Like I feel like that's preachy. It does come up because in this situation, that probably would come up, and that's fine by me. Never took me out of it, so I didn't see it as being preachy as much as, okay, if I don't mention this, people are going to think I'm being, obtuse about something. So it is brought up, and it didn't bother me at all. It's just a spectacular story about putting aside our differences to work for a greater good. And yeah, there's some messed up things that happen, and you think under this situation there's going to be some messed up things that happen. Some of our civil liberties are going to be taken away, maybe. With Ryland, he does undergo a lot of this kind of stuff, but it's a good struggle, and it's one with an ending that's going to just completely smack you in the feelings. I'll put it that way. It's so good, guys. And I don't know if Andy Weir is the type of author who would write a sequel, but I would not mind seeing one of this because it ended so well. I think this one is just an awesome idea for like a streaming series or a movie. I think even more so than The Martian, this would be a really spectacular movie. And it after what the success that The Martian, the movie, had, I'm sure this has already been snatched up. The film rights have already been bought, and it's probably already in pre-production at this point, because I think this is very cinematic, and it would do really well in a visual medium as well. If I have some final thoughts here, look, guys, I had no expectations prior to release. After what I heard about Artemis, like I said, I was kind of, I had the wall of optimism kind of up strong because I was like, all right, cautious optimism here. Was this guy a one-hit wonder? Until I heard all the people that I trust on my Discord telling me how amazing this was and that they thought it was better than The Martian. I'm not ready to go there. Like I said, I think they're both wonderful books. I won't say it's better than The Martian, but I'll say it's as good. And without a doubt, I'll think that this is easily one of my favorite new releases of 2021, maybe my favorite. It's just that enjoyable. I very much feel like both of his books that I've read now have very much felt like Michael Crichton with dad jokes, as I put it, because Crichton was very serious. He didn't have a lot of humor in his books or something like that. But just, again, a brilliant story about friendships and unlikely alliances. And I was reading the final pages of this book, guys, with misty eyes, and I am not being hyperbolic there. It did get me twice in this book, and that's saying something. That just shows his character work in this was just top notch, and again, might be my book of the year so far. We will see when we get to December if that holds up, because there is a new Joe Abercrombie book that's coming out here, very soon, which we'll get to talk about very soon. But guys, that was Project Hail Mary. I'm glad to get Sci-Fi September kicked off with such an awesome story. Again, sorry it took so long for this review to get made. Like I said, I knew that I was going to have to spoil that one plot element, so I wanted to be able to give folks some time to read it. And I think it's been about 6 months now that's been out. Most people that have wanted to read it have read it. And if you haven't, you listen this far, I hate that you ruined that. But again, it still is going to be a great story for you to read. And I think that you will love it. So guys, if you've read it, drop in the comments and let me know what you think. And I will talk to you there.